Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Artu and I'm a senior product marketing manager here at VMRay. I'm looking after the alignment between the product capabilities and value with the pain points of security practitioners. And thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we'll be focusing on autonomous response to critical malware alerts while going over the integration of Cortex XSOAR and VMRay. And we are looking forward to sharing our insights on how to leverage this powerful integration so that you can solidify efficiency gains in your SOC. As housekeeping, quickly, if you have any questions during the presentation, go ahead and put it in the chat. We will follow up during our Q&A session at the end. And the session will be recorded. You will get a copy of the recording in an email from VMRay in a few days. Now, I would like to give our speakers a chance to introduce themselves. First, Mohit Mohta.
Hello, everyone. Hi. I'm Mohit Mohta. I work with Cortex Speedboat as a security solution architect with focus on majorly on XSOAR platform. With more than 6 years of experience working with both manual and automated SOC operational process, I work as a linchpin between technical and business process and provide assistance to system engineers, aid them with product evaluations and work with engineering and product team to fill in any gaps.
Excellent. Michael?
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me clearly. My name is Michael. I've worked in IT, cybersecurity for quite some time now, and as a sales engineer, my job, of course, is to ensure that customers, A, understand the product, and B, get the absolute most out of the product. So dealing with integrations, helping to answer questions about malware analysis and how VMRay works. So nice to meet you all.
Excellent. So let me go through the agenda for today. First, we'll start with going over emerging challenges in security operations in SecOps, and a quick overview on why security teams struggle. Then we'll share what capabilities you can have through this integration and show you how it can be implemented, how it actually looks like. And we'll also speak about the best use cases like threat intelligence extraction, EDR alert vetting, and automated threat hunting. Before getting started, we have a very quick poll to understand the audience and get some insights. 3 questions there will be just in one go. Let me launch it. And just we will have like 20 seconds. Yes. All right. So just 5 more seconds. Perfect. Okay. So I see the some people who would like to explore more, and some of them have already hands-on experience with VMRay and XSOAR. So I'm ending the poll, and thank you so much. So with that, please take it away, Mohit.
Awesome. Thanks, Archibald. Alrighty, so let's actually take a look on emerging challenges in today's security operations. Archibald, can I have a next slide, please?
Yeah, sure.
So here, the complexity of SecOps is illustrated in this graph, where we see too many alerts, too many tools, too little staff, and too many silos. And these alerts are as much of a problem today as they were decades ago, because attackers can leverage automation to launch high quantity phishing or maybe malware attacks with just the click of a button. And these attacks are so sophisticated and sometimes indistinguishable, which results in compromise through all those human errors. Next slide, please. So in our next slide, we'll see that, you know, when we listen to security leaders on challenging their security and SOC team face, mostly these three themes emerge. The first theme is alert fatigue. We found that average organization sees over more than 10,000 alerts per day. And, you know, and the problem gets worse when you don't have the right noise reduction from the best-in-class prevention tools. So when you have too many alerts, too many tools, it requires far too many manual actions, right? And these manual action takes time. So another outcome of too many disjointed point product is the lack of context for investigation. So analysts need to you know, manually integrate multiple data sources and tools to get the total picture of the attack needed for accurate investigation. And it takes longer, right, to resolve incidents. And the longer it takes, the more risk you are potentially exposing the organization to the potential risk. Next slide, please. So now we know that cybersecurity is more important than ever because we continue to see an escalation in the volume, you know, the sophistication and impact of all those data breaches, which only seems to be just getting worse. And it has become a core conversation with the CEO, with the board members, opening more opportunities for discussion and visibility on how to protect the overall enterprise. I mean, you don't need us to tell you. You must feel it every day when dealing with an overwhelming number of alerts and trying to stay ahead of all those adversaries. Next slide, please, Archibald. So now let's define SOAR, or security orchestration, automation, and response. Well, the first component of SOAR is orchestration, which involves controlling and activating the security product stack from one central location. It mainly does through playbook, which are task-based workflows that coordinate across people, process, and technology. The second component we are seeing here is automation, which is just a logical subset of orchestration. And this piece involves finding a repeatable task and executing them at just machine speed. And the final component, response, involves maintaining incident oversight as it goes through the lifecycle. And you know, this includes case management, collaboration during investigation, or maybe analysis and reporting after the incident gets closed. Next slide, please, Archibald. So this let's give you a high-level overview of Cortex XSOAR that helps standardize and scale incident management by you know, either enabling cross-team communication where XSOAR playbook can automate engagement with end users and other SOC analysts, or by maybe maintaining security context where in this diagram, you can see that we can ingest alerts from any data sources. Let's say alerts from SIEMs can be reside on the same console as phishing alerts, vulnerabilities, or maybe alerts from cloud security tools. And this basically ensures that security team have common context and visibility over alerts across the entire lifecycle. Next slide, please. So before giving you a brief demonstration of the XSOAR platform, I will quickly go over a few of the slides. Now, Cortex XSOAR combats security challenges with 3 areas of focus: workflow automation, ticketing, and collaboration. And we make workflow automation possible through an extensible integration networks with more than 800 security and non-security products that we support in our marketplace. And these integrations are really powered by thousands of actions that can be remotely executed within XSOAR platform, either as an automated playbook task or in real time. So for example, you can automate looking up a URL's reputation, maybe quarantining an endpoint, detonating a file in a sandbox, or maybe sending an email. So basically, this workflow automation helps you respond to an incident with just extra speed and scale. Next slide, please. So Cortex XSOAR's second focus area is case management and ticketing, where it can ingest alert data across range of sources, including, like I said, SIEM, network security tools, email inboxes, vulnerability management, cloud security solution. And these alerts can be searched and queried according to various parameters, like helping you slice and dice the data at your disposal. Next slide, Archu. In this slide, this is the actually Cortex XSOAR third focus area, and it's a real-time collaboration and investigation. So Cortex XSOAR has a war room view, which is a shared workspace where your security analysts can chat with one another and conduct joint investigations. And more or less, all these actions and commands are automatically documented in the war room, preventing the need for manual post-incident documentation, where important information, can fall through the cracks. And war room really helps you improve investigation quality by improving the way humans are meant to work, which is together. Next slide, please. The fourth and latest focus area is threat intel management, which leverages SOAR to act on threat intel at machine speed and scale, where you can get instant ROI from their existing threat feed investment and much more, gain confidence in incident response decisions. Next slide, please. As a SOAR platform, Cortex XSOAR currently has hundreds of integration across all major spheres of security and allied fields. As of right now, I think we are around 850 plus integrations covered, and we have a good mix of integrations with either detection or enrichment, response, and allied products that allows our users to feed critical alerts into Cortex XSOAR and gain that central oversight. And many of these integrations are just bidirectional, resulting in a two-way flow of data so that all product database stay up to date. Next slide. And with that, I'd like to turn over the microphone to Michael. Michael?
Thank you, Mohit. Thank you very much. Okay, so a brief introduction about VMRay, who we are, what we do, and how, of course, we fit into this discussion. So founded in 2013 from Bochum, Germany, the CEO, the CTO, I believe, if I've heard the story correctly, VMRay was originally a PhD project. 120 plus employees growing, employees worldwide and growing. While our headquarters in Bochum, subsidiary in the US in Boston, and of course you can probably tell from my accent, a fair few of us in the UK, and I've just come back from a trip over to Asia to assist with my colleague, one of my colleagues based over there. So we're a very rapidly growing company based on this idea, enabling reliable security automation. So automation is fantastic. It does so much, but of course, what are you feeding in and out? VMRay helps improve analyst efficiency. We automate so much analysis that I think previously was only really done manually. Detecting the unknown, I'll get onto that shortly, how we do it via our type 2 hypervisor. We generate a huge amount of threat intelligence from all the samples we see, as opposed to anti-malware tools or other sandboxes that may just say that something is dangerous or not. And of course, all of that comes out boosting your SOC productivity and the return on your investment from tools such as Palo Alto's XSOAR. Next slide, please, Ertu. So if you just bring those all up on the screen, this is how we do what we do. So VMRay is a file sandbox. And I say file sandbox because most commonly people talk about malware, but of course, how do we understand if it's malware or not? We use these sort of methods. So reputational analysis, that's similar to what you probably see with your malware system. I hope everyone's got some sort of anti-malware software running. Static analysis, that's when we start pulling apart the samples. So that's where we pull apart, say, an Excel document and have a look at the macros. Have a look and understand why is there an image, our OCR image, OCR engine, for example, looking to understand why is there an image asking users to enable macros, and so on and so forth. And that's static analysis. But what we do so incredibly well is our dynamic analysis. This is via our type 2 hypervisor. I'll mention a little bit about this shortly, but as you can see from this slide, our dynamic web analysis and our dynamic file analysis. So we have many different ways to completely automate the process of file sandboxing, malware sandboxing, but also coming out of that, the post-processing. So our VMRay threat identifier is providing a very high-level overview of why we've classified the file as such. Everything is, of course, mapped to the MITRE ATT&CK framework, giving you that very, very useful common language, and our automatic indicators of compromise classification, meaning that instead of just giving you a list of IP addresses, we're instead going to tell you what they're doing, what's going where, why we've classified it as such. But dynamic analysis, that's what I want to have a look at on the next slide, please, Ertu. And that's, as I said, what makes VMRay so incredibly special. So, as I mentioned, reputational, static, and then dynamic. And dynamic analysis is where we use our type 2 hypervisor. Now, traditional sandboxes usually use an agent. They're going to look at hooking and things like that, and they're going to monitor to see what the sample is doing. But they exist within the malware environment, the sandbox. The problem with that is, of course, if the malware detects a sandbox, they can shut down, they can go quiet. It's very, very common. Users come to us, they say, I'd like to do a proof of concept of VMRay, and the first thing they upload are half a dozen samples that previously have shown nothing of note from their existing sandboxes. We get that malware to show its true colors because we are detecting outside of a type 2 hypervisor. So we are effectively wiretapping these virtual machines. So instead of actually having software within the virtual machine, we monitor from outside. The malware cannot detect what's going on. And that means, of course, we get such a fantastic view of everything that the malware is doing. From the previous slide, of course, we include things like TLS decryption, memory dumping. We can handle automatic reboots. We can handle if the process wants to go to sleep for a few hours. Because we're a type 2 hypervisor, we can handle all of that, speed up time, and get you those end results that much quicker. Next slide, please, Ertu. So why do people buy this? I think personally, originally, I can imagine VMRay being that analyst tool. You know, much like IDA Pro or Ollie Debugger or something like that, maybe a reverse engineering tool. But as VMRay has matured as a product, we, of course, have started providing different ways to consume this information and providing all these other sort of boosts to threat intelligence. So sorry, let me put my teeth back in, contextualizing existing threats. So not just telling you that a file is malicious, but actually telling you how it's malicious, why we believe it's malicious. If we're looking at an Excel workbook and it has an image that is asking user to enable macro, being able to classify this and tell you this is a social engineering attack. Identifying tools, techniques, and procedure shifts of malware families. We've seen it in recent years, certainly, sadly, a growth in ransomware, but now a growth in ransomware as a service. And of course, with those changes of malware and changes of attacks, we're seeing different areas of the MITRE ATT&CK framework being sort of highlighted. We're, of course, aligned to the MITRE ATT&CK framework, so everything we report back is very easy to digest. Enhancing enrichment playbooks with unknown threat analysis capabilities. Of course, this is where VMRay and Palo Alto XSOAR work so incredibly well together. When coming across an unknown file or an unknown behavior, being able to upload that file, that sample to VMRay, and to have it extract all of its behavior, to understand what this sample is doing, where it came from, did a user get unlucky, or is this a targeted attack, maybe via our malware extraction, malware configuration extraction engine? We give you that ability to start looking at unknown threats. And then high fidelity indicator of compromise sharing. Of course, everything that VMRay does up until this point would be absolutely worthless if it wasn't for the fact that we're going to provide you an extensive amount of information coming from this, from which you can integrate it into any product. And as Mohit's going to show you, of course, working with such an expansive tool as XSOAR, this means that the URLs that the sample attacks, maybe there's something you want to block on the firewall, the files that it's using, maybe you want to block that on the endpoint. Our indicators of compromise are extensively used throughout our customer environments. Last slide, please, before I pass back to Mohit for a bit. So why, again, did we grow beyond just an analyst tool? Because we provide all of this automatically. So we wouldn't be much of a product if we required users to sit there at a screen, much in the same way they do need to with traditional sort of malware reverse engineering tools. It's going to take too long. So we provide built-in connectors, the type that we're going to utilize today. We've got our REST API to allow this to be opened up further. And of course, a fantastic UI itself that allows you to upload the files, URLs, and emails that VMRay can then provide those verdicts and analysis from, all automatically. So with that, let me pass back to Mohit for a little bit more from XSOAR.
Thank you, Michael. So I'll just quickly go over one of our most popular use case here and show you how you can utilize Cortex XSOAR to look into and respond to all those malware alerts. The real problem with malware investigation today is investigation and containment just take too long. I mean, the first challenge here we see is rudimentary automation, where many customers had limited automations deployed regarding malware, and analysts have to review each alert individually. The second challenge we see here is investigations are highly manual, and analysts had access to malware analysis tools, but fetching the file and detonating it's all manual, right? And the third challenge here is finding the actual root cause just takes too long. Next slide, please, Archibald. So within XSOAR, the malware investigation and response pack accelerates the investigation process for the entire endpoint malware incidents and alerts by not just collecting evidence of malicious behavior, but also searching those telemetry data, which is available through EDRs, and process malware analysis report through all those sandboxes. So the investigation process is the most time-intensive step, I would say, where responding to malware alerts. And of course, an analyst must investigate whether a file or process is bad, but what are the detailed questions they should ask, and what supporting evidence should they collect? So Cortex XSOAR and VMRay Analyzer provides our customer with next-gen sandboxing capabilities by integrating automated analysis into their playbooks. And SecOps teams can detonate, analyze, and extract those actionable threat intelligence from maybe unknown files or URL, which is tied to the alert. And essentially, it's like speeding up your investigations, right? And enabling autonomous response to those critical malware incidents. Next slide, please. So here in the slide, it shows the VMRay Analyzer pack, which is available on the Cortex XSOAR marketplace, and it can easily be installed with just a click of a button, providing with next generation sandboxing capabilities by integrating automated malware analysis into XSOAR customers playbook. Next slide, please. So here we do see that, this slide actually shows you how you can leverage XSOAR with VMRay Analyzer in this fast evolving threat landscape. And VMRay and XSOAR allows your security team to filter out the noise and respond to the real malware threats faster. Also, you can see here the contextual threat intelligence provided by VMRay also allows you to start automated threat hunting in seconds. So the pack itself, the VMRay content pack in XSOAR, enables you to streamline phishing or maybe malware alert investigation to protect your organization or your business, and even empower your analysts to make better informed decisions with maybe actionable or accurate threat intelligence. And lastly, you can get automatically in-depth malware analysis report with high fidelity IOCs, including command and control addresses. Next slide, please.
Okay, so this is just a brief look at what's going underneath the hood. So of course, in Cortex XSOAR, this comes out so beautifully polished, but it's worth understanding how extensive our API is. So on the left there, I just put up a brief example of pushing a file up to our REST API with PowerShell. Very simple. As you can see in a few lines of code, that's how we're going to submit a file. Now on the right, that screenshot doesn't do it justice. Every function in our product in VMRay you can automate with the REST API. It's something that makes my job as a sales engineer absolutely fantastic, because when a client comes to me and says, can you automate X, Y, and Z? Yes, we can. Next slide, please, Ertu. Now, all of that looks great. On the back end of VMRay, generating an API key. First of all, we've recently introduced our SECA dashboard, our automations dashboard. It helps break down and visualizes what's going on with different categories. So as you can see here, I've generated a key in the XSOAR automation category. All of a sudden, everything is broken out quite nicely. So if we were looking at using VMRay to power up multiple different platforms, you wouldn't have to worry that the reports, you wouldn't be clear on whereabouts in the sort of your system these incidents are coming from. Next slide, please, Ertu. And then finally, another nice feature of the VMRay REST API is the ability to actually configure system settings per API key. So instead of generating API keys that are relatively, dumb, they just will continue to be used. Here we can actually restrict them. So first of all, you could specify that you just want the REST API to be dealing with verdicts or maybe reports. A verdict, that's just malicious, clean, or suspicious, whereas the report is the full set of data. Now, of course, if you're looking at vast levels of data, samples being pushed through, you probably just want to be looking at your verdicts. Triage, here I've configured it to stop analysis on known malicious samples. So if we use reputational and static analysis and we find enough to mark this sample as being malicious, we can stop analysis, speeding up and ensuring that your system and your quota isn't chewed up by reanalyzing samples the system has seen before. And the final part of the API key settings I just want to point to you are recursive sampling. Most samples that we see nowadays, they come via a URL in an email. The email gets submitted. Now, if we were just to look at the email is just going to have a URL. It's harmless. But of course, that URL leads to maybe a Google Workspace document. The Google Workspace document has a URL that redirects elsewhere, and so on and so forth. So it may be 3 or 4 stages until the payload is actually discovered. Recursive sampling in VMRay means that we will follow that path along until we get to the actual malicious sample. That ensures that when we're uploading something as harmless as a URL, we can actually see that if it redirects 3 or 4 times, we're not going to come back and give you a clean because the first URL was fine. We're going to come back and mark the entire path as malicious if the end result was a piece of malware. Back to you, Mohit.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. So here we'll go through a brief minute-long video that demonstrate how to use XSOAR console marketplace to run a playbook on those malware alerts. while using the VMRay Analyzer integration functionality. So here we can see that we have the XSOAR marketplace where we support hundreds and tons of integration. And you can click any one of the content pack and install it just with a click of a button. Once you do that, we can jot it down the API key, turn in the integration, look at the commands, and finally we can run a playbook, the automated playbook. So here, as I'm running the playbook, you can see how the analyst doesn't even have to go back and forth. I mean, all the tasks are already done. 95% of the task is already done by XSOAR. 5% we still give that human touch to decide whether this was false positive or false negative. So once it goes through all those, everything gets in a single pane of glass, and you can see here how we can extract the IOCs and display everything in an incident info or whether in an investigation. Next slide, please, Archibald. Cool. So now if you have a sandbox integrated with Cortex XSOAR for malware analysis, the playbooks included in this pack will automatically retrieve the malware report if it's available. And if a report is not available, the suspicious file will be retrieved using EDR and passed to the sandbox for the detonation. So here in this screenshot, you can see that in a single pane of glass, how we are getting all those data and showing analysts whether the file is malicious, or do you want to maybe isolate the endpoint, take a closer look to those actions or not. Next slide, please, Archibald. So once the automated investigation is complete, the results of the investigation are shown in the layout for the malware incident type, and the analyst will need to take actions. It can be manual actions. We can do that in an automated fashion instead of a playbook. But if an analyst takes a manual action based on the result of the investigation, he can decide whether the alert is a true positive or not. And if the alert is true positive, then the analyst will want to take the containment precautions to prevent the malware from spreading, right? So the layout for the malware incident type, as shown in the screenshot, includes button to easily trigger endpoint isolation, or maybe file deletion, or maybe kill process commands. Again, everything all in a single pane of glass. Next slide, please, Archibald. So here we see that, the behavioral threat analysis, and I think, Michael, do you want to cover the slide?
Yeah, sure. So what we're looking at here, once the integration is enabled in XSOAR, what we're actually seeing here, I wanted to bring this slide in to show the sort of threat indicators. So in the bottom left-hand corner, what we're looking at are the VMRay threat identifiers actually appearing in XSOAR. Now, the VMRay threat identifiers are a high-level understanding, let's say, of why a file has been marked how it has. So here, for example, the binary file was created with a packer. On its own, suspicious, but with a list of VMRay threat identifiers as we're providing here, of course, that enables you to understand why this is being marked as suspicious. Next slide, please, Ertu. So this one that Ertu very nicely, very good work there with the arrow to split this one up. As you can see, what I like about XSOAR's playbooks, it really gives you a very simple logic tree to build up an extremely powerful interface. So here we're going through checking that the VMRay instance is there. Is there a file to detonate, so on and so forth. And of course, finishing up with get indicators of compromise, get threat indicators, passing them back into XSOAR. Now, what I want to show you on the next few slides is what that sort of information looked like, not just from VMRay, but also considering this is the kind of threat identifiers and sort of indicators of compromise that are going to be appearing in XSOAR. Now, on all of these screenshots I've provided here, you'll notice at the bottom there is a URL. These are linking to our threatfeed.vmray.com subdomain. There you can actually go and view our reports. So our analysts upload a vast number of sort of cutting edge samples. You're free to go and have a look at them, have a dig through and see what this looks like. The first one I've got here, machine learning, catching a phishing page. Now, one of my colleagues did a great example of how long it takes most existing sort of engines out there to catch a phishing page. A URL is so incredibly cheap to buy, hosting as well, anonymous hosting bought via Bitcoin. It can be done in seconds. And of course, you can very quickly get hold of fake login pages, start redirecting all the traffic. Boom. We're catching these using our machine learning model. So we are actually able to see that this is a phishing page. We don't need to have seen that URL before. We just know this is not a Bank of America URL. We can see there's something suspicious there. Next slide, please, Ertu. This is another one I always bring up with people. I think I've got it on. Yeah, this one is something that always impresses me. So this is so incredibly common. We see this on, must be about 50% of Word and Excel samples. The document is protected. It's a common one, or document is backwards capable. So click on enable editing, enable content, and you'll get, you know, whatever the image defuzzes or something like that. As you can see here, we have a VMRay threat identifier. This is the kind of information, again, that's going to appear in XSOAR. It actually has extracted the text from the image below, and it's suggesting enabling macros. Now, as you could imagine, if we'd have provided you the full text of this image, well, you've got to make that decision yourself. But our engine and our machine learning, we've seen these so many times. Again, we can mark a document as suspicious just because it's asking users to enable macros. Next slide, please, Ertu. Another really cool feature, this was introduced a couple of versions ago, I believe. We're extracting malware configurations. So for about 20 or so common malware families, we can extract the common configuration. Here, we've got a form book example. As you can see there, we've got the decoy URLs and the URL. Now, the mission ID, of course, you might be looking at the same mission ID on multiple endpoints, or you might see the same sort of malware sample, but with different mission IDs. Of course, that's going to help you understand if you're part of a targeted campaign or you just have unlucky users. So again, these kind of indicators of compromise, all those URLs, plug them straight into your firewall, put them into XSOAR, start alerting when you see connections being made to them. Immediately, even if you'd installed VMRay, you'd hooked it up to your XSOAR platform, suddenly started seeing this, you can be sure that you can block any further traffic to any of these problematic locations. Next slide, please, Ertu. Now, this one is a busy screen, and there's a very good reason for this. Gone are the days of, you know, nasty little bits of malware that just sort of do something on your hard drive, then go to sleep. Now everything is internet born. As I said, HTTPS TLS is decrypted. It all appears as plain text. And what we're seeing here are all the domains that have been connected to. Now, of course, support.microsoft.com, as you'll see on the left of that URL, it's green. It's a harmless URL. We all know Microsoft. On the right, though, we can see this connection was not made. It's worth noting here that even harmless URLs, where connections are not even connected to, we still record them. We're going to give you an idea of what this was trying to do, even if your firewall or something else blocked it. At the top, however, we can see a Swiss IP address, port 80. Looks like it's tried to download a RAR file. Now the tabs are just above in the bottom right, the request, response, function log, and PCAP stream. Well, they go down that sort of OSI model, PCAP stream showing basically the bytes of the TCP session itself. but you can see the request, the response. This is a high-level understanding of what this sample was doing. So very, very valuable. Again, not just for what it did do, but what it attempted to do. And the final slide from me, to most important of all, the indicator compromise screen, all of this lovely information. If you're not consuming it via Cortex XSOAR, as you can see, CSV and sticks. So we really do provide this information, if not via REST API, if not using our REST API, via our many integrations into many wonderful platforms. Go ahead and just download it as a CSV, take a look at what these samples are doing. On top of that, Ertu would tell me off if I didn't also mention all of this is available via an IDA Pro plugin. So your analysts even have something to be happy about. Thank you very much. Ertu, back to you.
Excellent. So since we have no questions on the Q&A part, so just before wrapping up, I would like to give our speakers a chance for telling closing remarks. So Mohit, you have any closing remark?
Well, I can say that, with the cybersecurity evolving in a threat landscape, and with the phishing attacks or malware attacks, with the responses that we do see, Cortex XSOAR can, you can leverage Cortex XSOAR platform with all those automated playbooks, with VMRay Analyzer, with multiple point products integration. It's just, it's very easy, and it just makes your life so easier, right? Because like I said, analyst doesn't have to go back and forth, have those 50 tabs open, and doesn't even know which tab to click on that. So yeah, I mean, thank you, Arturo, for this opportunity. But it's a great, I mean.
Thanks, Mohit. Michael?
Please, everyone, get in contact. If you've got any questions, I'm a technical person and I love discussing this technology. Get in contact however you can. Look me up on LinkedIn, shoot us an email via VMRay. We can always set up a proof of concept. We can do an in-depth demo. I can talk your ears off and show you anything you're interested in. And I'm certain I could show you something very interesting with VMRay. Thank you very much for your time. Mohit, it was an absolute pleasure. And thank you again, Ertu.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mohit. Thank you, Michael. So, and everyone else participating from wherever you are. Just be aware, you could check out vmray.com to request a free trial, or if you have any questions, as Michael just said, feel free to follow up. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it.